All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jody Dublin. It's great to see everybody today. I'm the Associate Director of Advising and Programs at Beyond Barnard, and I'm happy to be partnering with the Athena Pre Law the Athena Pre Law Society, today to talk to you a little bit about what it means to be pre law at Barnard, some things to remember as you're thinking about being pre law, or even if you're not sure if you want to be pre-law or not, some things to kind of help you decide which path you want to go down. So again, Jody Dublin, she and her, and I'm happy to be with you this evening. All right. So first off, I always like to know, like, who are you and why are you here? So where are my first years? Raise your little hand if you're a first year, your little Zoom hand. Any first years? Yes, yes. Welcome, first years. Welcome, 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 welcome. How about sophomores? Any sophomores? Yes, welcome, sophomores. You survived your first year, you came back for the second year, ready for the third year. Perfect. Speaking of that, where are the juniors at? Yes, yes, some familiar names, of course. Welcome, juniors. And then how about any seniors? Any seniors in the house tonight? Seniors are too busy. Seniors are studying. Any alums? Alums are getting off of work. Perfect. Thank you. Well, I am very happy to have, my first years, my sophomores, my juniors. Honestly, y'all are the ones that are typically the most enthusiastic. So I'm excited to spend a little time with you. So tell me a little bit, and you can unmute yourself or you can write it in the chat. What are you hoping to get out of today's session? A general overview of what it's like to apply to law school, learn more of the nitty-gritty aspects of the admissions, mainly timeline, excited to ask some questions, learn about what pre-law is. Perfect. All of these are amazing questions and all things that we're going to be covering today. So let's begin. Here's our little agenda for today. We're going to be talking about what it means to be pre-law at Barnard. We're going to talk about the application year, going through each season. And then we'll go into some additional resources that you're going to use as you're getting ready to go to law school. And then we'll do our little Q&A at the end. And we also have some announcements, so be sure to jump in with announcements at that time. So first, we have our main resource here at Barnard, which is the pre-law toolkit. So if you just go to this URL, tinyurl.com/B, C, pre-law, that will give you access if you don't already have access. And the reason why I like to plug this is, first of all, it's our place where we collect all of our presentations, all of our resources and things like that. And that's also a way for me to share with you all what I hear about that's going on that might be of interest to you. So it might be events, it might be jobs, it might be internships, scholarships, all kinds of good stuff. So be sure that you're signing on for this. If you're not in front of your computer right now, and you are not able to get the URL, I'll send it when I send the presentation around after this event. So I hope you go ahead and sign up for this. So let's begin with this question. What does it mean to be pre-law at Barnard? Does anyone want to take a stab at this? planning to go to law school unofficially, flexibility, different majors welcome. Anything else? Well, yeah, you're basically right. It is a plan to go to law school. I always like to say that being pre-law is a vibe. It's not like, being pre-med where you have to take, two bio, two gen chem, two organic, blah, blah, blah. Nobody is going to be checking for any specific classes when it comes to being pre-law. It's basically just an intention to go to law school. So on that note, let's talk about it. So it's an intention to go to law school. It's a collection of coursework and extracurricular experiences intended to prepare you for law school and your legal career. Now, notice that I didn't say specific coursework or specific experiences, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later. It's using trusted resources to gain information about the law school application process, right? So I know there's a lot of information out there and it can be extremely overwhelming, but thankfully there are tons of vetted, trusted sources that you can use as you're starting to make this decision. So when we talk about what it is not necessarily limited to your undergraduate years. So you can decide whatever you want to go to law school. It's not limited to a specific major or minor. And it's not using unverified or unvetted resources to help you make your decisions about the law school process. So a question that I get often about being pre-law at Barnard is, where do Barnard students, where do Barnard alums apply, and where do they go? So I'm going to show you a little list of where folks go and where they apply and where they go. Now, I want you to take, especially the where people matriculates with a grain of salt, because typically the number of students or the number of applicants going to law school from Barnard every year is pretty small. So even though these are the top 10, there might not be that many people in certain places. So like even, the last schools, there might only be like 2 to 3 people that are there. So even though it's a top choice, it's, there's not like tons and tons of people because Barnard's a small school. So we see from the list here, we have folks that want to stay in New York. We have folks that want to be in DC. So a lot of East Coast schools. We also see some West Coast schools. And of course, we have the University of Michigan and Northwestern in Chicago. So we have folks in kind of the major urban centers, but typically they want to stay here. They want to do top 14. And then we see when it comes to matriculation, that they do end up trying to mostly stay on the East Coast. So we have New York City, Boston, Chicago, and then a few kind of in other parts of the country. So we see that people really love being here in New York. And I understand because I also love being in New York. Okay, so here we see the American Bar Association's recommendations for pre-law students. These are the skills that you should be trying to hone in your journey to become a lawyer. Mastery of these skills will help you become an effective professional in the legal field. So we see problem solving, critical reading, writing and editing, oral communication and listening, research, organization and management, public service and promotion of justice, relationship building and collaboration, background knowledge, and exposure to the law, right? So these are the things that the American Bar Association says, if you master these skills, you can be a very successful law student and hopefully a successful lawyer. So we can kind of take from that there are a lot of different ways that you can gain these skills, some of them in the classroom, some of them outside. Internships, volunteering, on-campus jobs, off-campus jobs, research, all of these things can help you be a well-prepared law student, and then, of course, a well-prepared lawyer. So let's talk about academic preparation. as I said before, it's not necessary to have taken any specific courses or majors to be successful in as a pre-law student or as a law school applicant. Law school is pretty academically demanding, so you're going to want to take courses that are challenging, that require a significant amount of reading and writing, and not just creative writing, but research writing, essays that you have to argue and really dispute facts and things like that. Um, Classes that require a lot of research, that entail critical and analytical thinking. Those are the classes that you're going to want to look for when you are choosing your classes every semester. And then, as I said before, law schools don't prefer one major over another. So you want to choose a major that interests you and that you can do well in. If you are interested in going into a very specific field of law, so like let's say IP law or fashion law or something like that, maybe your major will help you, but law school is intended to kind of give you the experiences that are going to help you be successful in the legal field. So you shouldn't feel a ton of pressure to choose a certain major in order to be more attractive to law schools. They want to know that you can handle the rigor of law school. So when it comes to academic preparation, these are the American Bar Association's recommendations. So again, an area of study that interests and challenges you, taking a broad range of difficult courses from demanding instructors. That's what's going to help you have a strong foundation to be able to do well in law school. So I would say, being a liberal arts student, taking that liberal arts curriculum that has a lot of different aspects to it, that is going to make you a strong candidate for what you're going to encounter in law school. So when it comes to extracurricular activities, you should, again, be doing things that you enjoy doing, right? We don't have a lot of time, especially in college, and you definitely want to be mixing in some of the activities that you enjoy. So if you like knitting, do knitting. If you like animals, do something with animals, right? It shouldn't just be moot court, law review, whatever. You should have a mix of different things that you really enjoy doing. Taking on leadership roles in clubs, participating in internships, regardless of whether or not they are directly related to law, and performing community service will not only provide you with personal enrichment, which is, always our first goal, right? These activities are also attractive to law school. So you should not be afraid of doing other activities that will allow you to hone your skills. So I'm thinking about research, other employment opportunities, and clubs on campus, right? So you, again, don't have to think about only doing very specifically law-related things. You can mix in a lot of different things that you love and enjoy. All right. So law school is intended to prepare you for a professional career. So you should use your time as a pre-law student to prepare for that. Internships and other work experiences are great ways to learn some of the soft skills that are important for the workplace. Networking is also important. You should use your time as a pre-law student to learn about the profession from practicing lawyers and law students, right? So I always recommend that when it comes to networking, you have a wide range of different people that you're connecting with. So you definitely want to get some law students in there, law students that are at the places that you might want to be. Because you want to know, like, what is law school like right now, right? I might be able to tell you, what the schools were like when I was there. I won't say how long ago that was, but I'm sure things have changed, right? So you wouldn't want to talk to me necessarily, well, in this hypothetical case, me necessarily about what school culture is like, maybe you want to ask me or someone who's been out of the game, the school game for a little while, a little bit more about trajectory, about how they got started, about where they see things going. And then somebody who's older than me is going to have a much better kind of bird's eye view of where the legal profession is going. And one thing that I hear a lot from students is like, who's going to want to talk to me? I'm just a student. I don't want to bother anybody. But I promise you, like, people are very eager to help Barnard students. So do not be afraid to reach out to people that you see on LinkedIn, or even if you've watched any of our videos and you see folks, that have volunteered, they already are showing that they want to help. So do not be afraid to reach out to them. Send them a quick email, let them know, hey, I'm a Barnard student, I'm a Barnard alum, I'm interested in going to law school. Do you have 15 minutes to talk to me a little bit about your experience going to law school? And I promise you, like, they are going to be super eager to reach out to you and talk to you about that. All right. So a lot of times I also hear students ask me about, how they can do something that's related to the law as an undergrad. Unfortunately, for a lot of undergrads, there are not that many very closely or direct legal experiences, right? It's very difficult for undergrads to get jobs in law firms. Law firms typically want law students to be around them, right? But there are ways that you can get similar vibes by doing other things. So here are some examples that I've pulled. So if you're interested in immigration law, doing some work around or volunteering or working with organizations that are doing that kind of work already would be something that you might be interested in. So I found a couple of organizations that are specifically working with migrants that have been bused here. So these two organizations, they're local organizations that are working to help resettle migrants. Civil rights law, if you're interested in that. Of course, we have the New York Civil Liberties Union, but then also a really great way to get to know what are some of the concerns of normal people, everyday people, how is the law impacting them, is to start working with local politicians. Now, I think New York is maybe unique in this way. There are tons of local politicians, right? We have assembly people, council people, state senators, regular senators, representatives. We have tons and tons of people that are, depending on where you live or depending on where you might want to work, very interested in having folks come in and work with them. So reach out to somebody in your district or a district that you might want to go to or might want to work in, and ask them if they have room to take on an intern. As I mentioned before, intellectual property, getting some experience in either the hard sciences or the humanities research will help you in that field in the future. You can also think about an advertising agency, right? These are different creative ways for you to get the experience that you want, depending on what your career interests are. And then, of course, environmental law, getting involved with any of the organizations here that deal with urban farming or pollution or, any number of environmental issues are going to expose you to some of the things that are going to help you have a better sense of, real life issues that you're going to face when you're going to law school and when you are going to be a lawyer. Finally, let's talk about personal preparation. So law school is a big commitment in terms of time, in terms of finances, and in terms of effort. You're going to want to prepare yourself for what's to come. So first, you're going to want to do research. Make sure you're taking time to look into specific careers that you want to enter. And this will help to inform you in two ways. It will let you know if you actually need to attend law school. So one thing I hear from students or folks all the time is like, oh, I want to do law school. I want to go to law school, but I don't want to be a lawyer. Um, I want to do this other thing. And 9 times out of 10, that other thing doesn't necessarily need to have, you don't necessarily need to have a JD. So you want to think about like, is this going to be the right decision for me when you do a little career research? It's possible that you want actually need to go to law school. If you do, then at least you'll know that you have done that research and you're, moving towards law school with a kind of clear mind and knowing exactly what you want to pursue. Second, once you've started thinking about careers and which ones you're going to want to pursue, you're going to need to know if the law schools that you're interested in specialize in the areas that you're interested in going into. So going back to our good friend IP law, right? Not every school is going to have a great IP law department or great clinics that are going to expose you to IP law. So you want to make sure that you're doing research into which schools are going to be strong in that. You should also be, of course, visiting Beyond Barnard for pre-law advising. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, going to our events. And then you should be going to law school visits. So we are really fortunate to be in New York City and around a ton of amazing law schools. And within a very short train ride, plane ride, bus ride, whatever, from a lot of other law schools that are amazing. So you should take advantage of the fact that you're here. You might not have Friday classes. Maybe that's a time where you and a friend jump on a bus and go visit, wherever. Definitely seeing a law school, understanding what it's like, kind of imagining yourself there will help you decide, like, is this a place that I want to go to or not? So second, you should also be doing a little me search. Think about timing related to law school admissions. When would you like to apply? Why is this the right time? Why is, whatever time that you are thinking about, why is that going to be the right time? You'll want to think about your fit for law school. So for example, if you don't like reading and writing and arguing, maybe law school is not going to be a good fit for you. Similarly, you're going to want to think about what you are going to be bringing to the admissions process. How are your grades? How are your test scores? What kinds of experiences are you bringing in? These are things to think about. How do these things compare to other applicants at your school? So as I said before, or as I started out saying, law school is also a financial commitment, right? We can kind of be honest about that. It's pretty expensive to go to law school. So you should be thinking about how are you going to be paying for this? Law schools offer scholarships, and there are some waivers that you can apply for that can ease the burden of the process, but it is still a huge financial undertaking. You should think about some ways that you should take some time to think about how you're going to pay for college, for law school, rather. And then finally, if it's applicable to you, you should think about visa and immigration concerns. You can speak with myself or an international student services advisor to talk about what your options are if, if visa stuff is important for you. All right. So now we're going to talk about law school acronyms. These are probably some things that you've heard, some letters flying around, and you maybe just like kind of nodded and smiled like, yes, I definitely know what this is. And you were like, I absolutely do not know what this is. So let's talk about these things. So first and foremost is the American Bar Association. This is the governing body for law schools and the legal profession. They're in charge of providing accreditation for law schools, administering the bar exam, and keeping track of who has been admitted to the bar. So we've already heard them talk about, what they think is what you need to know to be a successful law student. They are kind of the, the big bad of the legal industry. Like they are, not the big bad, but they're the big, the boss, if you will. Next, we have the Credential Assembly Service, aka CAS, aka CAS. The Credential Assembly Service serves as a kind of portfolio management service for law school applicants. We'll talk about this more in a little bit. Then we have the GRE, which is a graduate record exam. This is one of the exam choices that you have to take, or one of the exam choices that you can choose when you're applying to law school. And then we have LSAC or LSAC, which is the Law School Admissions Council. This is kind of like the middleman between you and the law schools when you're applying. Again, we'll talk about more about this shortly. And we have our good friend, the LSAT, which is the Law School Admissions Test. This is the test that is traditionally taken to gain admission to law school. But as I said before, you have the choice between the GRE and the LSAT, and we'll talk about that shortly as well. All right, so the Credential Assembly Service. This is a service that you'll need to sign up for in order to apply for law school. It stores all of your transcripts, letters of recommendation, LSAT scores, and score reports, and delivers them to the schools to which you are applying. You should register for an account at least 6 weeks before you intend to submit your applications. Your account will remain active for 5 years, but that timer restarts every time you take the LSAT. So if you take the LSAT, this year, then, in 2028, it will expire. But if you decide to take the LSAT again next year, then it will be 2029, right? So it keeps restarting every time you take the LSAT. So an account costs $195, but if you have a financial need, you can apply for a fee waiver through LSAC. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the parts of the law school application. So just like in undergrad, the first thing is a personal statement. So it's going to be a little bit different. You might talk a little bit about why you want to go to law school, why the school is the right school for you, why you want to be a lawyer, or whatever you want to do with this degree, why now, things like that. So it's definitely more specific than when you were going to undergrad, but it's still personal. It's still about you. Then typically you are asked for a diversity statement and or supplemental essays. So diversity statement is basically what diverse perspective are you bringing to the class, or how have you worked to, contribute to, making things diverse. So either like your commitment to diversity, your understanding of diversity, and that diversity, is a pretty not generic, but it's not specific. So it's not only like you can only write about your race or your gender or whatever. It's pretty loosely defined. So you can be creative with that. Supplemental essays are sometimes schools will ask you to write a couple of extra essays to talk about maybe why specifically you're interested in the school, or a topic, or a book or something. Sometimes schools get really creative with these supplemental essay topics. So those are the essay portions. Then you'll have your test scores. I don't know of any law schools at the moment that are test optional. Not to say that that might not happen in the future, but as of right now, you're going to have to submit something. So either the GRE or the LSAT. Then you're going to need to contribute or submit transcripts from every school. So obviously Barnard, if you transferred from somewhere, those transcripts need to come too. If you did, let's say like a summer abroad or a semester abroad at a different school, those transcripts are going to need to come to be submitted through the CAS, through your CAS account. So transcripts from every school after high school, of course, your resume, letters of recommendation, and then fee waivers can be submitted as well if you need them. For CAS and for LSAT, you apply through LSAC. And then sometimes some law schools will also waive application fees. There might be information on their website. And then also there on our law school toolkit, we have like a pretty comprehensive spreadsheet of who supplies fee waivers, what you need to do, what are the categories, stuff like that. So you can cruise on over to our pre-law toolkit for more information about that. All right, so excuse me. Let's talk about testing. Every law school will accept the LSAT and many will accept the GRE. So in terms of which one you should take, it's a personal preference. You should look at the policies for the schools to which you are applying. Do they accept the GRE? If they don't, then don't take it. If they do, then you still have to decide what you're going to take. You should spend some time looking at both tests and seeing which one you think you're going to do better in. So try out some practice exams, use similar testing environments. So don't kind of do it, when you're on the beach one day, literally set a timer, try to replicate the testing conditions for each test and see which one you do better in, see which one you like more, and then kind of go down that path. Note though, if you decide to take the LSAT, the schools will only consider that score. So if you take the GRE first, and then you're like, you know what, let me try this LSAT. And you try the LSAT, law schools will pretend that GRE never existed. They will always take the LSAT over the GRE. So you really have to think about which test you want to take, knowing that. Now, when it comes to taking the test, whichever test, do so when you are ready. Take practice exams and make sure that you're scoring 1 to 2 points above what you want to score. So for example, if you want to score a 170, make sure that you're scoring at least 170 to 173 in your practice exams, because usually when you take the regular test, because of nerves, because of everything like that, you might score a couple of points lower. So when you're taking your practice exams, when you're consistently scoring where you want to be, that is a clue that you are going to be ready for the exam. When it comes to accommodations, they're available for both the GRE and the LSAT. You can apply for accommodations for the LSAT at the same time as you register for the exam. You'll need to be, you'll need to be approved for accommodations before registering for the GRE. So LSAT, you can do it at the same time. GRE, if you need accommodations, you have to apply for accommodations first, and then you can apply for the test. So once you receive the accommodations, or you're granted accommodations, then you can register for the exam. However, the good news about the GRE is that you can take it basically any time of day or at night at home, and it's offered frequently as well at testing centers. The LSAT is offered about 10 times a year on Sundays and Saturdays. In terms of retaking the exam, you should really strive to take the LSAT, as few times as possible when you're ready. Of course, we can't control everything that happens around us, so you should plan to take the LSAT early if you need to retest before you apply. There isn't one way to study for the LSAT or GRE. There's a lot of different ways. You should think about how you study best and the resources that you have at your disposal. If you know that you need individual attention and lots of prodding, you might want to consider getting a tutor, or get together with a few friends and try to hire a tutor for the few of you, right? If you're more self-motivated, maybe you can take a class, or you could even purchase a book or books or get apps. I literally had a student one time and he told me he paid like $150 or something for this app, but his score went up like 10 points after he started doing this app. I was blown away. So, you can be successful in a lot of different LSAT preparation methods. So there's not necessarily one that I endorse or that we as an office endorse over others, because there's a lot of ways to be successful. So here we have a little bit of comparison between the LSAT and the GRE. So when it comes to composition of the GRE, it's 3 sections: analytical writing, which is scored 0 to 6 in half-point increments. It tests critical thinking and writing and an ability to analyze an issue and an argument. And it's all online. The verbal reasoning section of the GRE is scored from 130 to 170. It's reading comprehension, and there are several different kinds of questions. So you have multiple choice with one answer, multiple choice with more than one answer, a select in a passage kind of thing, a text completion, a sentence equivalence. So it'll have like a sentence, and then 2 different blanks, and then 6 choices for the answers. And then there's a quantitative reasoning section, again, scored from 130 to 170. There are the same types of questions as before, so multiple choice one answer, multiple choice more than one answer, quantitative comparison, numeric entry. So it might say like, what is 1 + 1? And you have to type in 2, right? And then there's like data interpretation as well. And then there's also a 1 unscored research section that you're not going to know about when you're going in. So you're going to go in, whatever, and then, do all the sections. And then it's going to like repeat 1 section. And that is going to be the unscored research section. It's given over 3 hours. And at the end, it will show you a review of the questions that you answered and unanswered, so that you can kind of see like where you stand. There's not going to be any surprise at the end. The exam fee for the GRE is $220. There are other fees if you need to reschedule or change your test site or anything like that. There are fee reduction waivers available. You can take it, again, anytime from home or from a testing center, and it's accepted at many schools, but not all law schools. So if you're interested in taking the GRE, make sure that you're reaching out to law schools or looking at their website and seeing, do they accept it or not? All right, so let's talk about the LSAT. It's 2 parts, a multiple choice part and a written essay part. So let's talk about the multiple choice part. It's 4 35-minute sections. 3 are scored, 1 is unscored. You're not going to know which one is unscored. The first one that I'm going to talk about is analytical reasoning. It's 20, aka logic games, 23 questions. These are tests these test deductive reasoning. Then you're going to have logical reasoning. These evaluate your ability to analyze, evaluate, and complete arguments. And this is going to be 24 to 26 questions. Next is reading comprehension. You're going to get 4 sets of questions. Because law school is all about reading and understanding dense and complex tests, this is especially important. And then, of course, the unscored section, it could be any of the previous 3. This is where the LSAC will try out some new questions or whatever. So it won't impact your score in any way that you're participating in this. And also you won't know which one is unscored. And then also there's a written exam. You can take this up to 8 days before the LSAT test. It's administered online. It's unscored. However, law schools do get a copy of that. So Make sure that you are taking it seriously, you're doing it well. In the past, I've been to a conference where there were some admissions folks, and they literally showed a picture of somebody's writing sample where they had drawn a picture of a dinosaur. Now, I understand, it's a very stressful situation and it's unscored, but you cannot draw a picture of a dinosaur or a picture of anything in the writing section. Just do your best, pace yourself, and know that somebody is going to be looking at it. So it's $215. It is, you might have some other fees, such as the CAS report that we talked about, if you need to reschedule, if you need to do a score audit, which basically you like have them, double check and make sure that they didn't make a mistake. And then your CAS reports, when you're applying to school, you're going to have to pay for CAS to send reports to every school that you're applying to. Fee waivers are available for that. There are 2 tiers of fee waivers that the LSAC offers. So you can go on their website and apply. And it's offered about 8 times per year. You take it from home. And of course, all law schools accept the LSAT. All right. So now we're getting into our timeline. Now, this is when we're thinking about spring, it's prior to application. So if you are thinking about going to law school before or right after you graduate, this would be spring of your junior year that you'd be going through this. If you are thinking about it whenever in the future, this would be, kind of like so if you're thinking about like 2024, this would be not 2024, 2025, you'd be starting this in spring of 2024, okay? So the first thing, one of the most important things that you will need is letters of recommendation. So you should be taking the time to get to know professors, getting to know folks that you do your internships, whoever it is that can write a strong letter of recommendation for you. You should start that process as soon as possible. And in the spring, before you're applying, this is when you should kind of let them know, like, hey, I'm thinking about applying for law school. Are you still cool with writing me a letter? Whatever. Just kind of put them on notice. You're also going to want to start doing your LSAT or GRE registration and prep if you haven't already started doing that. You want to sign up for the Credential Assembly Service. You want to start putting together your law school application list. And also you want to start doing your law school visits. Now, law school visits, what I like about them is you can basically go anytime. You can go in the summer. It's not going to be as active, obviously, but you're off. So, it's a good time to kind of start looking at different places, especially if you are not familiar with the city or the state. It's a good time to go and start looking. Now, when you're putting together your law school list, here are some ways that you can start evaluating potential law schools. You can use the official guide to ABA approved JD programs on the LSAC website to guide your search. You can also use the ABA 509 reports that every school is required to publish to help you get some of this information as well. So one question that you're going to want to ask is about financial aid. What kind of aid do they offer? Do they have any special programs that you can consider? Location, especially now, like laws are changing. Are you going to want to be in a place where, you can't do the things that you want or need to do? These are things to think about. You should also kind of generally be thinking about what state you might want to practice in. Now, that's not always the case. People can move everywhere. There are some states that have like bar reciprocity, but it can be a good idea to factor that into what you're thinking about, especially when you're thinking about like networks and, just making roots in a certain area. Clinics, if you have interest in a specialty, you should especially be looking at if the schools that you're interested in have clinics that you might want to participate in. The bar passage rate and graduation rate, these should be high. Make sure that you are applying to schools that have high bar passage and high graduation rates. Job placement. You want to make sure that you're looking at where students are being placed. So, if you want to go into a certain industry, you're going to want to look at those schools and see that they are sending folks into those industries. A lot of this information is public. Like, it's really interesting. Like, unlike college, unlike, undergrad, even grad school, a lot of this information is public. All you have to do is look at the school's website. It's all out there, right? Now, my favorite word, vibes. That's super important. You want to go to a school where the vibes are good, right? Where you are going to match whatever vibes are there, because you want to be somewhere that you're going to thrive personally, not just academically. To be more specific, if there's things you're thinking about in terms of community, you should try to see if the school has what you're looking for. For example, if you like having a diverse class, you want to see if they have like a BALSA or a LALSA, organizations that you might want to join while you're there. There are, on the LSAT websites, there's a guide for LGBTQ students that are interested in going to law school. So you definitely want to go somewhere where the vibes are going to match, right? And then at the bottom of the list, we have rankings. You shouldn't be making your choice based only on rankings, okay? The ABA, the American Bar Association, does not endorse any ranking lists at all. So you should be applying for schools that align closest with your wants and needs, okay? All right, let's go into the summer. During the summer of your application year, you're going to need to get a lot accomplished. So first, personal statements. You should be drafting them and working with the Beyond Barnard advisor to make sure that they are good. About 6 weeks before application, you should reach out to your recommenders and officially let them know, this is happening, I'm applying. Set an appointment or two with Beyond Barnard to check out your application progress and answer any questions that you have about the process. So you talk to me, I work all summer, everybody in our office works all summer, so we're happy to start fielding your questions. And then finally, you're going to take your entrance exam. Again, take this when you're ready with enough time to retest if necessary. So if you take it in June and then you're like, oh, I wasn't feeling well, or there was something wrong with the computer or something like that, you'll have enough time to apply early in the cycle if you retest, let's say in October. So if you do it in summer, you should be good for the first time. All right. So in the fall, this is when you're going to focus on your supplemental essays, because by now applications will have been open. So you can see which questions schools are asking for specifically. You're going to want to submit your FAFSA beginning on October 1st. You're going to want to finalize your applications by late October and submit by late November. Now, I always like to use Thanksgiving as a guide because, number one, I think everybody should have a nice Thanksgiving, right? You've earned it, you worked hard, like who feels like doing law school applications during Thanksgiving? But also, and more seriously, law schools typically, even though admissions are rolling, they will have more aid at the beginning of their cycle. So if you want a scholarship or whatever, typically they might have more aid at the beginning. And also sometimes they can be a little bit more flexible with admissions decisions. So applying earlier with the caveat that your application is the best that it can be is what I recommend. So I say that to say, if You really need Thanksgiving weekend to make sure that it's at its top. Take Thanksgiving weekend. Take even, a few more weeks after that. If you need a little bit more time to make sure that your application is the best that it can be, then go for it. Don't, rush a bad application. It's okay to go a little bit slower and go a little bit more into the application cycle if you're able to submit a better quality application, you know, uh, later. And then finally, we're at winter and spring. At this point, your applications should all be in and you'll start receiving responses. So first thing you're going to want to do is carefully review each response. There might be action steps and deadlines that you need to follow. So you might say something about, applying for financial aid, seat deposits, admitted students, all that stuff. Make sure that you're reading every letter carefully, making notes. If you're like me, Google Calendar, making note of everything that you need to do when you start getting those acceptances. If you're placed on a wait list, consult with an advisor to discuss strategies. So sometimes we don't get that A right away. That's okay. If we're on the wait list, there's still hope. We can talk about some things that you can do to maybe help the movements go in your direction. You're also going to want to attend admitted students open houses. Make sure that you do that. Again, it's another chance for you to see the vibes, meet folks, show interest. If you need to make appointments to talk to financial aid or whoever, this is a good time to do that. Confirm acceptances and make deposits. So, those seat deposits, they're no joke, but you got to do it. You got to show that interest. So this is the time when you're going to do it. And then inform other schools of your decision not to attend. So as soon as you know where you want to go and you feel good about it, go ahead and, let the schools that you're not going to go to, let them know that you don't want to attend so that they can admit someone off the wait list. You never know. It could be another Barnard student that's waiting for you to let them go so that they can be admitted. All right, so here are some additional resources that you can look at. So the American Bar Association is a top resource. As I talked about before, on that page is where you'll find the 509 disclosures, which are the fact sheets that basically tell a lot of different information about each school. So it has things like scholarship, how many people receive a scholarship, what are the percentiles for law school, for the LSAT rather, and for the GRE. There's tons of amazing information in those 509 reports. I really recommend that you use that as a guide when you're searching. Of course, Beyond Barnard, we have tons of resources for getting information about law school, what it's like to be a law student, etc. Barnard Connect, a great way for you to meet folks that are already in law school or working in the legal career. We have the Council on Legal Education Opportunity, which is a program that seeks to diversify the legal field. So that's a really great organization, especially for low-income folks. Khan Academy. So when you sign up for the LSAT, you automatically get LSAT prep resources from Khan Academy with no additional cost. So they're a great resource for preparing for the LSAT. LinkedIn, again, another great way for you to connect with law students and current lawyers. We have lsac.org, which is a way for you to get information about when the LSAT is offered, law school information. There's a law school search engine. They have tons of different programs where you can be involved in helping shape the LSAT even. And then there's the National Association of Law Placement, NALP, which shares a lot of data points related to the legal profession. So there's salary information, there's diversity information, there's information about which sectors are growing. So it's a really great tool for you to understand what's going on in the actual legal profession. And then finally, we have our old friend, the pre-law toolkit. So upcoming, we have a chat with a law student, Olivia Roach, who just graduated a few years ago. That's coming up on Friday, March 24th. Information about that is in Handshake. And that's it. That's all. So I know that we have Jacqueline, who's going to make an announcement. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Jacqueline.
Hi, thank you so much. We so appreciated your time and your presentation today. And there were a lot of points and checklists to consider, which I know that we all benefit from. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of Athena Pre Law. For those of you who don't know, we are focused on bringing resources, opportunities, and events to law-minded students across Columbia. And we really want to be a community of support and composed of peers and mentors that can answer any questions that you have and work with incredible places like Beyond Barnard to help get those answers. We also aim to host some events ourselves where you just kind of get to know what law school entails and really learn what comes after. We also have a blog and we have a newsletter with all of that information. So this has really been such a crucial, important step to what we aim to do. So thank you so much for bringing that for us and to us. And I don't want to take up, I know it's already 7, so I don't know if we have time for too much of a Q&A, but we were wondering maybe we send you some of the top questions people sent in and we can send in our newsletters the answers. Or
first of all, I am so sorry. You put the what's it called? The acronym, and I didn't realize. I thought you were from a different organization.
Oh, no,
That's
no,
why
yeah.
I told you could go. I thought it was going to be like, we're another organization.
No,
I am so
no,
sorry
no.
about that.
Oh, no, not at all. You were so helpful. I'm glad we got
new.
to listen to everything you had to say.
And second is yes, we can go through. We have a few minutes. We started a little bit after 6, so
perfect.
we can chat a little bit. Yeah.
Haley, do you want to go? I know Haley collected some questions from our members, so
yeah, I can read a few, and then if you want, like, we can send out the rest later. But Jody, thank you so much for doing this. It was so helpful, very informative. I can just like pick a few out. So maybe the first one. Oh, a lot of people asked about like time off and like how do you know if you should be taking a gap year, and like if you do take one, like what that would look like. So if you want to answer that.
Yes, definitely. So time off is there's a lot of different factors. So one of the first ones I'll talk about is, because it's kind of like more straightforward, is like for international students. Sometimes it's much easier for international students to go straight through from undergrad to grad school because, the visa situation can be tough when you go back home and come back. So for some folks, that's a factor. For some folks, they want to get a little work experience before going into the legal field. And, a question that I always get is like, what can I do for 1 year? And my thing is always like, you don't have to tell your employer that you're only going to be there for 1 year. Like, most employers only require, a couple weeks or a month's notice. So you can do what you need to do. And when it's time for you to go to school, like, you just peace out. And that's it. So you can definitely do whatever you want. So you can do something that's law related, or you can do something that you've always wanted to do that maybe you're not going to be able to do after you go to law school because maybe, the loans are going to be too much and you're not going to be able to support yourself, or, you're going to want to just jump into the legal field. So there are folks that are doing things like going on a Fulbright, so doing teaching abroad. That's a short-term commitment. You kind of have to plan for that because you'll need to, like, depending on where you are, do whatever test before you go. It can be a little bit logistically challenging, but it's not impossible. Some folks just have a regular job, so they're doing consulting or product management or even Teach for America. Some people do that. some people, you know, like I said, it depends on what you want to do. And then in terms of like thinking about timing, um, it's kind of up to you. Like if you feel like you are exhausted and you need to kind of recharge, which, you know, the last 3 years have been truly exhausting for all of us. So it is definitely understandable if folks want to take some time off. Um, you know, I hear a lot like people want to take 1 year off, but 1 year off is not really 1 year off, because if we're following our timeline, you're going to start preparing basically while you're still in school. So there's not really that much time off. And if you're thinking about like, oh, I'm going to write about this in my applications, well, you're only going to be on the job for a couple of months before you have to start applying. So law schools do generally like to see a little time off, or maybe more people take time off. The average age when folks are coming in to law school is around 24, 25. So people are taking at least a year off. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Sometimes also like if folks, like if they had a little trouble or they didn't get the GPA that they wanted to, it might be best to have a little distance between undergrad and law school. So there are lots of reasons why, and basically you can kind of do whatever you want during that time. Um, I I encourage creativity,
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
of course.
And then also like another question was if it would be better if like a recommendation comes from a more academic, like a teacher or like a professor versus like someone you worked for and like saw you working and like knows that work experience.
Ooh, that's a really spicy one. That's good. So, what I recommend is first and foremost, asking people that know you the best to write your letters of recommendation. So sometimes, like, especially, you know, at Barnard, maybe you have a professor that's like really well known in the world, you know, and yeah, maybe that name is a good name, but like, do they know you well? And are they going to be able to write you a strong letter of recommendation? So that's my first piece of advice. Second, depending on sort of when you're applying, um, like let's say you're applying, you know, straight or soon after undergrad, you definitely are going to want to have at least one professor letter of recommendation in there. So again, that person should know you very well. It is okay to have uh, like a work or professional person. Um, so typically you want like 2 to 3 letters. If you are having that third letter, it needs to be at the same quality as the other 2 letters. So like if you think somebody's like not going to do a good job, don't even ask them. So it's much better to have 2 solid letters, whether it's 2 letters from professors or one from a professor, one from an experience, than 3 mediocre letters. And also we did a program about asking for letters of recommendation a couple weeks ago. It's on our YouTube channel if you have any anxiety about how to ask for that.
Okay, great. I'll be sure to look at that. And then this is just the last question because I don't want to keep people too late. But how many places would you recommend applying to?
Oh, yes, that is another question I get all the time. And the bottom line is it's kind of up to you. You know, you have to think about things like your budget, because these applications are expensive. So you have to think about how much money you want to spend. You have to think about applying to places that you actually want to go to, and then places that are going to take someone with a profile that's similar to yours. So while the LSAT and your GPA are not the be all end all, like I know students that have gone with a lot of different GPAs and a lot of different scores go to a lot of different kinds of places. They can be important. So depending on what your profile is, what your interests are, if you're interested in a very specific kind of law or something, I wouldn't recommend applying to a lot of different schools because you know only some schools are going to have that program that you're interested in. But yeah, so I don't necessarily have like a number. I think the average for Barnard students was around 8 last year. But again, think about like where you actually want to go. I'm a strong component of only applying to a place that you want to go to. Because who feels like it? Take that money and take that time and do something that you actually like.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you so much for hosting this event. It was really so informative, so helpful.
Of course.
And I think that we're gonna send a couple questions if that's okay, because there are a lot more.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you so much. And I don't know if
Thank
John.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You've
you
been so helpful.
all.
And we're gonna
Thank you
send
for
our
coming.
link to the people who signed up and asked questions too, so they can watch it.
Yes, definitely. I'll send you that once it's posted on YouTube.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We really
Of
appreciate it.
course. Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you. Have a great night.